Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to another review of Disney Plus's The Mandalorian. This time, we're looking at episode 3, The Sin. How does it stack up to the first two episodes? Well, let's find out. So if you're just tuning into this video series for the first time, you're probably wondering why this is maybe so late on, especially if you're from America and you're like, this review is way too late. So Disney Plus only just released in the UK last week, and the only episodes that are out so far are episodes 1, 2, and 3, and they are releasing now weekly on a Friday. So we've got episode 3, and this Friday we'll get episode 4 as well, but that's where we're at now, in case you're wondering why these reviews are so far behind the rest of the world. Now, if you've seen the first review of episodes 1 and 2, you'll know that I'm already a massive fan of the series and the direction that they've taken the show and Star Wars in general. So how did episode 3 stack up compared to 1 and 2? Well, 1 and 2 kind of a one-off together and it's kind of dipped. Well, let's find out. I said that as if that was going to be elusive and it might take you a while to figure out what my thoughts on this one are, but I'm gonna just get right to the point. It's a good episode. The Mandalorian continues with its just excellence in craft, in both storytelling and just general filmmaking overall. My main gripe actually with the series so far, if I had to get into it, is not so much the actual show itself, but more of the way Disney Plus are releasing the show. Let's take these first 3 episodes, for example. They're so tightly knit in terms of the story they tell. It's literally one episode leads directly into the other one. There's no real time jump between them. That releasing them 1 week at a time, especially because they're relatively short. Episodes 2 and 3 kind of clocked in actually under the half-an-hour mark. When the story is so kind of focused as it is, and you're waiting that long now between each episode and a whole week, it does kind of interrupt the flow of things. In some ways, I'd kind of like to just wait for the whole thing to be released and then watch all of them in one go. I think that would be a really satisfying way of doing it. And I'm not generally one who is a massive fan of binge watching everything in a go. I don't mind waiting a week for shows. I quite like it that way. But in the way that this story is told, I find it strange that they're going for the weekly approach because I don't think it fits that type of release. But hey, that's an issue with Disney Plus as a service rather than the actual show itself. Let's get into the episode then. Well, as I say, nothing really to report on negatively for this episode overall, which sounds kind of boring, but I want to get into why I think the episode works really well again and carries on that consistency from episode 1 and 2. From a technical perspective, from a filmmaking perspective, what are they doing that makes the episode feel good and makes me want to watch the rest of the series to find out what's going on? Why am I so invested in the characters? What are they doing on a technical level to make me feel that way? That's what we're going to be looking at today. Talking about pacing, episodes 1 and 2 kind of took a slow pace. First episode was rolling a bit faster. Episode 2 definitely toned back a lot, whereas I thought they were going to leave the planet instantly. They take the entire episode to just get off the planet. Episode 3 follows that format of episode 2, where pretty much we're following a very specific timeline. Everything in this episode almost happens in real time. We follow Mando as he returns with the bounty target, which we know to be Baby Yoda. He returns, and pretty much the question this episode is asking is, will Mando hand over Baby Yoda as the bounty? Because from what we've seen, we know that he's forming some sort of emotional connection with Baby Yoda. He feels protective over him as a character. So will he go through with making the decision of handing Baby Yoda back to the Empire, who we as an audience know? It assumes that you know because you've probably seen Star Wars, or you at least know what a stormtrooper is. That giving Baby Yoda to the stormtroopers, probably not a good idea for Baby Yoda. So we're waiting to see if he's going to make that decision. And ultimately, again, spoilers alert, but I assume you've seen it, he doesn't hand Baby Yoda over. But that's the crux of this episode, is him making that one decision and acting on it. But why does that make it a good episode of television? Well, the team make a very excellent use of the theory of Chekhov's gun, which was used in the first 2 episodes already. And Chekhov's gun is the idea that nothing is without place within a scene. If you're going to set something up, you're going to pay it off later. And they do that extremely well with Baby Yoda in the cockpit at the beginning, playing with that little lever there and twisting the end of it off, playing with it, and then Mando takes it off him, kind of gets annoyed at him, is a bit frustrated by him almost for playing around. He's obviously not used to having that responsibility or having a childlike figure in his life. As we progress through the story and we walk through the location, which they use extremely well. Again, we've only seen 2 real locations in the first 3 episodes with Tatooine. But now we've come back to, I'm not sure what planet this is, but he's come back to this kind of outlawish type planet. He walks through it. We get a sense of space. In this episode, we see the market that eventually becomes the shootout grounds later at the end. We see him return to the canteen, which we've already been established with before, and he returns back to the compound, which they established very well as a sense of space for the set piece of action that comes later as well. So it's not just kind of barreling through and shoving locations in your face, it's letting you as an audience get familiar with the locations, because we're going to see a lot of them throughout, well, this episode in particular. So Mando hands over Yoda, and again we get a bit of information, some really nice just backstory thrown in from the person who gives the bounty target to Mando. Just saying, when Mando asks about what's going to happen to Baby Yoda, there's that question of like, why are you asking about this? That's the code, that's the guide. So even just Mando asking that question shows that he's already made that extra leap emotionally to go beyond what's expected of him in his professional role, because he's so invested in Baby Yoda. And we get that nice camera movement as the camera moves away from Mando as Baby Yoda is carted off, to show that Mando's right in the moment with the money, but Yoda being pulled off draws him out of that, and he draws him out of that world as the camera pans away and pulls Yoda off, and Mando is almost drawn off with him as well, and we see him almost lose a bit of himself as that happens. We can sense that something's brewing in Mando's mind, again using the fact that they've only got the mask on his face, the whole helmet. Excellent work with the camera movement and the sound and the music to really emphasize that he's not okay with that. Anyway, he moves on from there, and he goes and meets the rest of the Mandalorian characters who are still in hiding, and we get a little bit more backstory as well. And I really love the way that this whole bit of story is done with the Mandalorian characters. It's almost like Batman going into his Batcave and getting a new bit of equipment, just the way that he's like, yeah, got some money, what's the new thing we want? I love the way they set up the jetpack as well. Later on, when we see the character with the jetpack flying next to him, and he says, I got to get me one of those, because we all know Boba Fett, Jango Fett, we all kind of associate that gadget, that piece of equipment with the Mandalorian characters. And if you weren't excited, if you weren't sure he was going to get one in this series, well, they pretty much kind of locked that down, that that's going to happen at some point, and I'm really excited to see that happen. And they know the audience are excited for that, so I do like the little bits of fan service they're chucking in here and there. Sometimes it can be a bit over the top in shows, but I just think they did that well with showing the jetpack there. Anyway, Mando gets his new wrist rocket thing, which again, set up and payoff. They give it to him and he uses it later very effectively. While that's happening, we also get a little flashback again to that same scene we saw in episode 1. I found it really fascinating that the slaughter that was happening in that flashback with him and his family was during the Clone Wars, it seems, because you had the battle droids all coming in there, and it was kind of a relief, because the sequel trilogy, again, not bashing that, that's a different topic. The sequel trilogy kind of really wanted you to do a Game of Thrones and forget that the Clone Wars kind of existed. They just kind of forgot about it, and they didn't really want to talk about it at all. Whereas in this series, it seems as if they are incorporating all of Star Wars as a whole. And I'm so interested to see how the Clone Wars era impacts Mandalorian's character, because obviously we know that his look, the look of the armor and everything, is what the clones were based off, and in terms of what the stormtroopers were based off. So I'm interested to see how his role and how the Mandalorian's character in the universe plays into the role. I don't know where they're going to go with it, and that's what's so interesting. I like how they've got the droids in there. I was really thrown by that, because usually Star Wars sticks to the era that it's in. Doesn't really do much to refer too much back to the old stuff, unless you're episode 9 and you want to just shove it all down your throat. Sorry, I'll rein it back. But yeah, I just found it fascinating that they were using the droids in an era set post episode 6. That was cool. That's my point. So Mando goes back to his ship. Nice little montage of him just getting ready to leave. As an audience, you are waiting for him to... I was like, really? He's just going to leave him? And that payoff is it's just perfect when he goes to reach for the lever and he just notices the top of it is missing, and it gets you right in the feels. That's right at the point where you know that's got him. That lovely camera move they have where it just pushes closer and closer to his face, as you could just sense his making that decision. You know what he's gonna do. You know he's gonna make that decision. You want him to make it. He knows he wants to make that decision. And they just linger on that enough that when he finally switches everything off, heads out the ship, the music swells. It's a really satisfying moment because it's been building there for a while, and you know he's been conflicting with that in himself, but when he makes that decision based on that one bit that they set up earlier, it's just great filmmaking. Oh yeah, he also gets his armor. Oh my god, when he walks into the canteen with his bright shiny armor on, I was like, yes. Oh, it's been so great to be excited about a TV show again. It's just cool, and just stuff that's like, this is cool, and we're just putting it in because it's cool, and I like that. Okay, I like that. Great use of weaponry again with the flamethrower, the grapple, the missiles in his little wrist rocket. Not missiles, kind of like, well, they were missiles. A bit like that, the thing that Iron Man has in the first Iron Man film where it fires all the little things. That was shoulder. That, and then obviously his blaster and his long-range rifle. Just a great use of all of his gadgets. Again, really showing that Mando is skilled with the weapons that he has. Yeah, he breaks out, makes his way back to the ship. The rest of the Mandalorians come out, support him, have that big little fight. Oh, what does that even mean? But now the question is, where do they go from there? We know he's got Baby Yoda, and it's strange because this episode pretty much starts off in the same place it ends. It's Baby Yoda and Mando in the ship in space. Is exactly where the episode started, but there's been so much progression in Mando's character within this episode, even though they're in the same physical space. And that's what made this episode so compelling, is we see a massive arc progressed in just this one episode of Mando making that jump between just being a heartless, cold bounty hunter to making a emotional decision and crossing the line away from the code of conduct from the Bounties Guild, making a purely emotional decision, and the rest of the story will be compelled by that active decision. He's an active protagonist, and that's what makes him compelling to watch. So where do we go next in the story? I don't know, and that's what I'm so intrigued to find out. This could go anywhere. As I say, we've been to pretty much 2 locations. There was that one extra location at the very beginning, but 2 key locations, a couple of characters, and that's about it. So where are they going to go with this? I can't wait to see how the Empire plays into it. I can't wait to find out more about his backstory with the droids and how that all happened. And who is Baby Yoda? Because he's obviously not Yoda because of the timeline. So how does he fit into all of this? And what did the Empire actually want with him? Because it didn't seem like they were going to kill him. It seemed like they wanted to test him for something, but what for? Well, we'll have to find out in either next week or the following weeks after, but that was my review for episode 3, The Sin of The Mandalorian. Great stuff again. Would highly recommend carrying on watching this series if you haven't been watching it already. I've spoiled a lot of it anyway, but it's just great. It's just so well done. And I can't wait for episode 4 this Friday. I really can't. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're in the UK and you're watching it as well, what do you think of the 3 episodes we've got so far? Are you looking forward to episode 4 as I am? And do you have any theories about what's going on? I'd love to hear what you think is happening with these characters. And that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video and you want to see more content like this, do hit the subscribe button. That does really help me out. And give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Again, that all just helps out with everything, especially during this rough time. And hope you're all doing well, keeping safe, staying inside, and looking after yourselves. That's it from me. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video.